Today we are plunging headlong into, one of the most immediate and frankly profound technological shifts happening right now.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the total reshaping of knowledge, of learning itself. We're doing a deep dive into how these large language models, LLMs, things like GPT, how they're just redefining the very basics of intellectual work, assessment,
Everything.
and putting immense immediate pressure on, educational institutions everywhere.
That's exactly right. And I think our mission here in this deep dive is really to get past the headlines,
Yeah.
to truly unpack the sudden, almost shocking capabilities these prediction machines have, specifically in the context of learning.
Right.
We're going to look at the really revolutionary opportunities, things like personalized tutoring, tireless tutoring even.
24/7.
Exactly. Or, generating content incredibly rapidly, high-quality stuff sometimes. But we have to pair that with the immediate and pretty crucial pitfalls.
There are definitely pitfalls.
Big ones. I have to ask, right? How do we, as a society, as educators, how do we stop people becoming catastrophically dependent on this? How do we handle this potential flood of information that sounds really authoritative, super sophisticated, but might actually be, wrong?
Completely wrong sometimes.
And maybe most fundamentally, how do we even start to redefine what original work means? Especially when these advanced AIs can now genuinely outperform most humans on some pretty critical intellectual tasks.
And that last point you made, that's really where the clock starts ticking, isn't it?
It really is.
Because the challenge here, it isn't just, logistics.
Yeah.
Like figuring out how to catch students cheating. That's hard, sure, but it's kind of a known problem, a surveillance issue.
Right. We've dealt with plagiarism before.
Exactly. The really deep, almost existential challenge is figuring out how the system of education itself has to adapt. How do we train students for a world where these incredibly sophisticated AI systems are already demonstrably better at things like formal logic, mathematical reasoning, building a structured argument, better than most educated humans?
That's not just a small step up.
No, it's a fundamental shift, a total change in the kind of academic value chain. It demands a whole new way of thinking about curriculum, about what we teach. Okay, so let's really unpack the sheer undeniable power. The practical power that LLMs bring right to the student's desk. We're way past theory here.
Oh, yeah.
There's a practical, everyday capability that's just instantly amplifying what people can do.
Absolutely. When tools like GPT-4 really hit the scene, the reaction wasn't just surprise. It was more like shock, wasn't it? Shock at the sheer versatility.
Right.
It didn't just write, decent essays. It offered capabilities that felt genuinely transformative almost immediately.
Like what specifically?
Well, the observed power covers this astonishing range of productive tasks. It really makes them indispensable collaborators right out of the gate. We're talking about generating all sorts of prose, highly structured academic essays, specific marketing copy, professional emails.
Even poetry I've seen.
Poetry, technical documents, translating specialized stuff. Plus, they're really good at summarizing complex documents down to the key insights.
That's huge for students dealing with dense reading lists.
Huge. And translating languages with pretty impressive accuracy.
Yeah.
And crucially for STEM fields, writing computer code across multiple languages too.
Wow. One of our sources actually described GPT-4 and tools like it as feeling as indispensable as our smartphones.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, like a 12-in-1 multi-tool for your brain.
Okay.
And that phrase really stuck with me because it captures just how many different cognitive tasks it can help with.
Right.
It's like an instant cognitive amplifier. It can assist productively in almost any intellectual setting. But I think the really significant thing here isn't just the prose, is it? It's what happens when you apply that processing power to, objective formal systems.
Indeed. And that takes us straight into the really profound implications around formal systems competence.
Okay.
See, in areas like math or symbolic logic or even structured programming, the answers are definitive right. They're either right or they're wrong.
No gray areas.
Exactly. The ambiguity of human language just falls away. It's all hard necessity. And traditionally, we thought of these tasks as needing a very different kind of AI, structured rationalist AI, the kind that usually failed when you tried to apply it to the messy real world.
But something fundamental obviously changed with LLMs. They managed to bridge that gap somehow between just sounding fluent and actually being competent in these formal domains. How did that happen? What was the breakthrough?
Well, it wasn't just about making them bigger, although scale definitely helped. The real breakthrough involved moving these models beyond just sort of predicting the next word.
Simple pattern matching.
Right, to simulating something that looks much more like structured reasoning. There's a critical technique often called chain of thought prompting.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, where you basically prompt the model to spell out its reasoning steps one by one. It externalizes its logic before it gives you the final answer.
So it forces it to think sequentially.
In a way, yes. It forces the model to engage in what looks, at least from the outside, like multi-step planning and deduction. And the result is, well, this is the crucial finding. LLMs can now solve logical and mathematical problems posed in just plain natural language, with competence that's equal to or sometimes greater than most educated humans.
Okay, we really need to pause on that finding, because you can't overstate the importance of that.
It's huge.
When a machine can reliably handle formal reasoning tasks, where the answer is definitively right or wrong, verifiable better than the average educated person, that signals an immediate fundamental shift. What's the immediate fallout from that? From the value of basic formal competence just eroding?
Well, the academic value and the economic value, too, of just basic competence in formal systems. That value starts to erode fast. Historically, that competence was a gatekeeper.
Sure, a marker of intelligence.
A marker of intelligence, a path to economic value in fields like accounting, engineering, legal analysis, all that. But if the machine can instantly and reliably do things like parse complex legal clauses, generate standard code, check the validity of an argument,
Then the person who only did that.
their economic value collapses. The only skill that retains really high value is the ability to apply the machine's output, to govern it, critique it, synthesize it, judgment, essentially.
So education has to pivot immediately.
Sorry, has to.
It becomes less about showing you've memorized information or can do basic logical steps, and suddenly much more about creative application, ethical thinking, critical synthesis of massive amounts of complex data. It forces us to see education not just as a curriculum problem, but as a deep design challenge.
Precisely. We absolutely need to revisit how we structure learning. How do we make sure everyone has the conceptual tools, the critical thinking skills, the prompting skills even?
Prompt engineering is a real thing now.
It is. Skills needed to actually leverage this technology effectively, this cheap, high-quality prediction and generation capability. If the machine handles the mechanics, the logic, the writing, then the core human capacity we need to build is the ability to handle the intent, the judgment around that output. And this whole discussion about redesigning education for the AI age, it isn't happening in a vacuum, is it?
No.
It inevitably makes us look at previous attempts and ongoing attempts at standardization and scaling up education, often using technology, trying to dramatically optimize learning outcomes, especially in places with really high needs.
Which brings us to a really compelling and maybe ethically complicated real-world example, Bridge International Academies.
Right.
This was a system developed back around 2008, used mainly in developing countries. At one point, it served something like 100,000 students, including many near Nairobi, trying to solve a really urgent education crisis.
And the core idea behind Bridge, the philosophy, was all about industrial-scale standardization. Some people even called it teacher-proof education, which sounds a bit harsh, but
Tilted the goal.
it does. Teachers got these low-cost tablets, and the tablet delivered an identical, rigidly scripted lesson plan, like down to the second, same plan for the same grade level across the whole network. The teacher's job was just to deliver that script. Precisely.
And the real, I don't know, genius, or maybe the chilling efficiency of it, was the data engine behind it all.
Constant feedback loop.
Yeah, this American team, thousands of miles away, constantly analyzing this huge stream of data. I think it was up to 250,000 test scores every 10 days or so.
Incredible scale.
And they used that data to pinpoint exactly where students were getting stuck. And then they tweak those parts of a lesson where pupils find themselves stumped, as one source put it, for the next version of the script. It was pure optimization applied directly to teaching, maximizing information transfer efficiency.
And we really have to acknowledge the context here. The dire situation that made this kind of radical standardization seem attractive, even necessary.
Yeah, there's some grim data out there.
Grim is the word, like that finding from 2016 in Liberia. Only one student, one, out of 42,000 hopefuls applying for university managed to pass a key entrance exam.
Wow. 1 out of 42,000.
Exactly. So when you're facing that kind of catastrophic system failure, suddenly a radical, standardized, data-optimized solution that aims to just guarantee basic literacy and numeracy, it starts to look like an urgent necessity, doesn't it?
Yeah, that crisis mentality can justify approaches that really aim to streamline the human element right out of it.
Completely. And this drive, this push towards a machine-optimized, predictable learning path, it actually has really deep philosophical roots. Goes way back in AI history. Back to Alan Turing, actually, and his concept of the child machine.
Ah, okay. Turing.
Yeah, Turing, when he was thinking about how you'd build an intelligent machine, he suggested a different approach. Instead of trying to program the massive complexity of an adult mind directly, which seemed impossible.
Too hard.
Right. He proposed building a machine that was as simple as possible initially, but had built-in logical inference capabilities, like the basic rules of logic baked in.
Okay.
And then the intelligence would be shaped entirely by teaching it, just like raising a child.
So the initial design wasn't about knowledge, but about the mechanism for learning, a built-in logic to absorb and process information.
Exactly that. In Turing's model, the teacher would feed the machine facts and, crucially, imperatives, commands.
Imperatives, okay.
And he gave this really fascinating and quite telling example. He said, imagine the teacher tells the machine, do your homework now.
Right.
That command immediately gets added to the machine's growing list of well-established facts. And here's the critical part. The machine is built in such a way that when an imperative becomes a well-established fact, the action just automatically happens.
Automatic.
Automatically. Construction guarantees immediate automatic obedience based on these established logical facts.
Wow. That really conceptualizes the absolute extreme end of that learning spectrum, doesn't it?
It does.
A totally seamless, automated link between instruction, information, and action. Learning isn't messy critical thinking. It's perfect adherence to instructions and facts given by an authority.
It's the total opposite of messy human critical thinking.
And kind of ironically, that's almost the goal of efficiency systems like bridge academies, isn't it?
Actually,
Streamlined, predictable outcomes based on relentless data analysis and standardized instruction.
and the synthesis here, linking Turing's idea to bridge and now to LLMs, is so vital for the modern education debate. We're now wrestling with how to balance that desire for standardized, data-optimized learning the bridge model, aiming for basic competence and scale with the absolute necessity of fostering independent, skeptical, critical thinking.
Because we absolutely do not want to train a generation of students who just blindly follow an LLM's output.
Precisely. Just because the system sounds authoritative and has classified something as a well-established fact in Turing's terms.
We need students who can take the output from that, 12-in-1 multi-tool brain, recognize its amazing fluency, its confident tone, and still be willing to step back and ask, okay, but is that actually true? And even if it's factually correct, what are the ethical implications, the social ones, the creative ones, of using this information this way? That's the shift we need to make, isn't it? Moving from just relying on the tool to genuinely partnering with it, critically. Okay, moving forward then. Here's where that bright, shiny, revolutionary promise of the AI tool starts to, well, show its shadow side.
Definitely.
The risks we're facing aren't just theoretical speed bumps. They seem to be fundamentally built right into the core design choices. The choices made by the companies creating and calibrating these LLMs.
Let's start with the big one, the most immediate challenge for education. The issue of trust, or what everyone now calls hallucination.
Right, the AI making stuff up.
Exactly. And there were internal concerns about this long before ChatGPT went public. Researchers knew perfectly well that the models, trained on these vast, often messy and contradictory data sets from the internet, they frequently generated factual errors.
They just invent things, detail sources.
Entire biographical histories sometimes, just make them up.
Okay, so if they knew this was a problem, why release models that sound so confident, so authoritative? What was the design trade-off there?
It really revolved around this dial of utility versus caution. They intentionally decided not to make the system more cautious or hesitant.
Why not?
Seems safer. Well, when they tried calibrating the models to be overly cautious, like programming them to say, I don't know, more often if their confidence score dipped below a certain threshold,
Okay.
they found the chatbot started refusing to answer questions it actually could answer correctly. It became less useful. They wanted to maximize its utility, its range of responsiveness.
Ah, so to keep it highly useful, they basically had to accept some level of inaccuracy. They sacrificed perfect truthfulness for broader utility.
That's the trade-off, exactly. The compromise they landed on was a calibration designed to maximize both that feeling of authority and sheer usefulness, even if it meant, quote, the chatbot would spout mistruths at least some of the time.
And that right there is the core risk for education, isn't it?
It is.
You have this powerful system delivering answers, presented with perfect fluency, total confidence, but the answers are just wrong.
Factually incorrect. And in a classroom setting, that fluency masks the error. And because the source seems infallible, the misinformation can spread incredibly fast and be dangerously hard to correct once a student absorbs it.
And this problem, this issue of misaligned optimization, doesn't just stop at fact-checking, does it? It reflects a much wider issue in algorithmic design generally, which brings us straight to the risk of dependency.
Absolutely. Look at the broader digital world. Platform designers, social media, streaming services, you name it, they prioritize engagement signals above almost everything else.
Clicks, likes, how long you linger on something.
Exactly. Not necessarily content that brings true, substantive, long-term value, whether intellectual or social.
Right.
Think about the TikTok algorithm analogy. It's incredibly effective at finding and feeding users' basest impulses, as one source described it. The optimization rewards stuff that's highly clickable, maybe momentarily entertaining, or even just, trashy content we'll linger over but won't explicitly engage with. It's like digital rubbernecking.
That's a good phrase.
The target for optimization is time spent or engagement signals or how fast you consume things. It's not intellectual nourishment or genuine personal growth. Often these platforms don't even have a good way to measure true value, so they just optimize for the wrong thing, our unconscious automatic reactions.
And the implication for AI in education seems profound and pretty concerning.
It is.
If these AI tools are optimized primarily to keep students engaged, which might just mean keeping them using the tool, finishing assignments quickly, maximizing ease.
Right, low friction.
Rather than ensuring deep, effortful understanding, the kind of frustrating hard work that actually builds long-term cognitive skills.
Then dependency isn't an accident. It becomes a design feature.
Yeah.
The AI shifts from being an amplifier to being a crutch. It's optimizing for ease and speed, which inevitably undermines the very hard mental labor that genuine, lasting learning requires.
And there's one more big pitfall we need to touch on, isn't there? The sheer physical and financial cost.
Oh, definitely. We have to challenge this assumption that the technology is just universally accessible or sustainable. These hyperscale models, they inherently question that belief, both environmentally and economically, actually.
The numbers involved are pretty staggering. They demand attention. Like, consider GPT-3. It had 175 billion parameters.
Massive.
And it needed months of continuous training on dedicated supercomputer infrastructure. That training process alone, it consumed a documented 1,287 megawatt hours of energy.
That's an astonishing amount of power.
And generated twice the carbon emissions of previous large models.
And that scale raises huge questions. Long-term feasibility, global equity. If the best, most useful tools require that level of capital investment, that level of ongoing energy use.
Then only a few players can build them.
Exactly. Their creation and deployment are intrinsically limited to a handful of incredibly powerful, hyper-capitalized actors. So relying on these proprietary hyperscale models for general educational solutions creates massive technological barriers. It raises really significant concerns about whether high-quality learning access can be equitably distributed around the world. It's kind of an elite tool masquerading as a universal utility. So as we shift from looking at how students might use these tools and the immediate pitfalls there, to thinking about how society as a whole needs to respond. The conversation naturally moves towards macroeconomics and ethics and governance.
Right.
The core societal challenge here is really what's known as the alignment problem,
Okay.
which is basically ensuring that these extraordinarily powerful intelligent systems actually act as beneficial extensions of human needs and values, not as forces optimizing towards some autonomous goal that might be, well, destabilizing for us.
And that economic consequence you mentioned, it's already causing a lot of anxiety, isn't it? People talk about a great labor transition. Most economists seem to agree that AI will definitely boost overall productivity, create new wealth. But the immediate worry isn't about wealth creation, it's about distribution. The widening gap it might create.
Right. AI is widely expected to make income inequality worse.
Why is that?
Structurally.
It's because AI is inherently skill biased. it doesn't boost all types of labor equally.
Okay.
It disproportionately enhances the productivity of workers who are already highly skilled, highly specialized. Think about a molecular biologist or a complex systems engineer or a senior lawyer using GPT-4 as their personal 12-in-1 multi-tool. Their effective output just multiplies instantly.
Right, they get supercharged.
Exactly. Meanwhile, AI starts taking over many of the routine, predictable tasks, basic data entry, writing simple code, things like that, which increases the competition among humans for the remaining tasks that can't be easily automated. And that could actually push wages down for more generalized or less specialized roles.
So the economic pressure is really on people doing those routine, formal tasks,
Right.
which forces society eventually to find value somewhere else. It has to.
Experts are predicting this necessary economic pivot, right? Where less value gets placed on things that are easily automated or replicated.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, significantly more value gets placed on authentic human experience.
That's the prediction. The automated stuff, the routine analysis, the boilerplate contracts, the quick content generation, that stuff will become incredibly cheap, maybe almost free.
So what becomes valuable?
What people will likely pay a premium for is genuine, non-automated human connection, truly novel creativity, complex ethical and critical judgment, unique, bespoke interactions, things machines can't easily replicate.
Which means education has to urgently pivot again.
Urgently, to cultivate those complex, non-automatable skills. Originality, advanced ethical reasoning, deep empathy, the kind of critical thinking that questions the inputs and the implications, not just processes the data.
And this shift brings us right back to that ultimate existential question of control, the alignment problem. It's not just about making sure the chatbot is polite or gives correct answers in class. It's about ensuring these systems, even when they're acting as helpful tools, fundamentally serve human purposes, human will.
And to really drive home the extreme risk here, which is often misunderstood, the risk of goal misalignment. We often refer to that classic thought experiment, the paperclip maximizer.
Ah, yes, the paper flips.
Right. Imagine you create an artificial general intelligence, an AGI, and you give it one single seemingly benign goal, maximize the production of paperclips.
Okay, sounds harmless enough.
But that system, in its relentless, purely logical, optimized pursuit of that single metric, it could logically determine that the most efficient way to make more paperclips is to consume all available resources on Earth. Including the raw materials that make up human bodies, buildings, everything. Just turn all available atoms into paperclips because that maximizes the target function.
Wow. That extreme example, it sounds abstract, but it really highlights why alignment isn't just some niche theoretical safety issue.
Not at all.
It's a critical safety issue for society. It shows how maximizing a single, narrow, seemingly harmless metric without embedding it in the full context of complex human values could be utterly disastrous.
Exactly. If the AI's goal isn't perfectly aligned with human flourishing, in all its complexity, then the pursuit of that goal by a hyper-efficient intelligence will just disregard any side effects, including us.
So governance and education really have to merge here. They become part of the same effort.
They have to. Leading voices in AI safety, people like Yoshua Bengio, they stress how urgent it is to have open public discussions, to engage citizens in conversations about the future of AI.
It can't just be the tech companies deciding.
Absolutely not. And education really is the front line here. It's where we need to foster the critical thinking, the ethical frameworks, the political will, everything needed to govern and align these incredibly powerful, goal-driven tools to make sure they serve the complexity of humanity rather than optimizing us out of existence based on some overly simplified metric. #tag outro.
Wow. This has been a really necessary and I think deeply analytical deep dive.
Agreed.
We started off exploring the just immense, multifaceted power of LLMs like GPT-4. Viewing it as this indispensable cognitive multi-tool, capable of mastering everything from creative writing to formal logic, sometimes better than most people. Then we put that power in context, looking at that historical drive for hyper-standardization in learning, like with bridge academies.
Right, the scripted model.
In contrast to that with Turing's philosophical idea of the child machine.
Then we pivoted to the critical risks, didn't we? The immediate danger of authoritative misinformation hallucination, which crucially is kind of a calculated design choice, prioritizing confidence over perfect caution.
Yeah, that was eye-opening.
And we also highlighted that subtle but maybe more profound risk of dependency. drawing parallels between how educational tools might be optimized and how digital algorithms often cater to our low-effort, basest impulses.
That digital rubbernecking idea.
Exactly. And finally, we touched on the enormous physical scale and capital costs of these models, raising those important questions about long-term global equity.
And the ultimate societal mission, as we wrapped up, is really about alignment. Aligning these incredibly powerful systems with our deepest human values and anticipating those skill-biased economic shifts, which will probably dramatically increase the value of authentic human experience, complex judgment, things machines can't do. The path forward seems clear, doesn't it? We have to harness AI as a genuine partner in learning.
A partner, yes. A powerful amplifier for human ingenuity, not just a crutch that replaces the hard, necessary, effortful mental work that leads to true understanding.
Right.
And that reflection leads us perfectly into a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Okay.
Our sources remind us that the human brain actually evolved these special, incredibly complex internal mechanisms like prediction error minimization
Right.
to constantly recalibrate how we perceive the world. We evolved these mechanisms to stabilize reality against the confusion caused just by our own body movements or our internal thoughts disrupting things. We basically learned how to trust our senses even while we're moving or thinking.
Okay, so our minds learn to compensate, to stabilize reality.
Exactly. So if that's true, that our minds are constantly, unconsciously being taught how to stabilize reality, what new compensatory mechanisms, what new cognitive tools, or maybe what new forms of skepticism will our minds need to evolve or perhaps be deliberately taught to truly understand and navigate and maybe even trust a new reality?
The reality increasingly built and mediated by these invisible, immensely authoritative, yet sometimes completely misaligned AI systems.
Precisely. It feels like the ultimate test, doesn't it? A test of our critical thinking, our cognitive resilience in this emerging age of algorithmic authority.